you for taking the risk of having a kid speak about such a heavy topic here. About our future. Because this year, we will have the 19th International Climate Conference. The adults are discussing about our future since 19 years at these international conferences, longer than we are old. And we are still talking about economic growth constantly. And we still haven't understood that it's not possible to have global unlimited growth in such a limited system as our planet. And that continuing to grow is like an alleyway where only the first people to reach the end are the winners, and all the people coming later, which is us children and the future generations, are the losers of that process. And this year we have an anniversary, 300 years of sustainability. Because 300 years ago there was a forester called Carl von Kalowitz, and he used sustainability for the first time. Because the foresters are planting trees all their lives, although they know that they themselves won't have an advantage from that. But they live from the trees the generations before them planted. And this is where sustainability comes from. And the best definition of sustainability we children ever heard was from an indigenous person from North America. Because he told us that in his tribe, every time they make a decision, first they think of even the 7th generation after them would support this decision. And only then they agree on doing something. And globally, we children, we see one main problem. In a few years, when we are in power, and we'll have to live with all the problems the adults are not solving today, we won't be able to take the adults to account for these problems. Because they will be dead by then. And if this wasn't the case, most adults would probably act very differently. And in many studies, from many organizations, and also from our projects, we learned that all the children and youth from all around the world see two main crises: the poverty crisis and the climate crisis. The poverty crisis, with 30,000 people dying of starvation every single day. And the climate crisis. Every day we take as much carbon out of the ground as it took 1 million days for the sun to store it there. And for us children, it also seems that for most adults, 9/11 is the darkest day in history. At that terrible terrorist act, 3,000 people died. But every day, 30,000 people starved to death. And this is why for us children, 12/11 is the darkest day in history. At the International Climate Conference in Durban, South Africa, over a year ago. Because the adults are discussing about our future at these conferences since decades. But at that conference, there was a very simple goal: a follow-up protocol for the Kyoto Protocol, which ended last year. But instead of making a contract, which starts at the beginning of this year, the governments decided that there should only be a contract in 2020. That means that in 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19, all countries can exhaust unlimited amounts of CO2. And that also means that the 2 degrees goal, which the adults have promised us since years, is impossible to reach. But this goal is incredibly important. Because if the temperature rises by about 2.3 or 2.4 degrees, then the Greenland ice will melt completely and the sea level will rise by 7 meters. At our academies, we children learn a very simple rule. If we don't want the temperature to rise by more than 2 degrees, we are only allowed to exhaust 2 tons of CO2 per person per year. And if we only want the temperature to rise by a maximum of 1.5 degrees, we're only allowed to exhaust 1.5 tons of CO2 per year. But today, on the world's average, we're nearly at 6 tons. So until 2020, until we have that contract, we might have set the stage for 5 degrees plus. But no one knows what that means. But when it was 5 degrees colder in average on Earth, there was about 2 kilometers of ice over us here. And at that climate conference in Durban, South Africa, the Canadian Environment Minister made it even worse. During the conference, he gave a speech there, and during that speech, 6 of us youth from Canada stood up and they turned around, and on the back of their shirt it said, "Turn your back to Canada." And they were thrown out of the hall and out of the conference. And only a few days later, the Canadian Environment Minister reaches home, where he announces that Canada will step out of the Kyoto Protocol. Only 1 year before the Kyoto Protocol ends, Canada just steps out of it. Because in that protocol, they signed that they will reduce the emissions by 6% compared to 1990. But instead, they went up by 25%. And because of that, they should have paid a fine, which was $14 billion. But they decided to save that money and step out of the Kyoto Protocol. Does that mean that our future isn't even worth $14 billion? We children have understood that the adults know all these problems globally. And the adults even know the solutions to these problems. But we children don't understand why there is so little action. And while thinking about this, we always came across one example. The example of the monkeys. If you let a monkey choose if he wants 1 banana now or 6 bananas later, the monkey will always choose the 1 banana now. And to us children, it seems that many adults think a little like these monkeys. In other words, convenience and ignorance is more powerful than common sense. And that's why we need global contracts, global social contracts, like an extension of the Kyoto Protocol. Or sustainability has to be founded in all the constitutions of the world. And we need laws for the global finance sector, and we need all these things. We need taxes for airplane fuel and so on. Those are just a few things. And in the last years, especially between 2008 and 2010, we children often ask ourselves, what would we do if we were the heads of governments around the world? And by doing that, we found a 3-point plan. The first point is, of course, planting trees. Our goal is to plant 1 trillion trees. These are the amounts of trees we can plant in the world without having problems with food production and civilizations. And 1 trillion trees means that every person in the world needs to plant 150 trees. And if we manage that, then these trees will absorb 1/3 of the global CO2 emissions. The second point is that we need to leave the fossil fuels in the ground. And that by the latest in 2050. We just have to go down to 0 emissions. But the scientists tell us that we already have all the technology we need for 0 emissions. And the third point is that until that time, until 2050, we only have a limited amount of CO2 we can still exhaust. If we don't want to surpass the 1.5-2 degrees limit, which is about 1.5 tons per person per year. And if someone wants to exhaust more, then they pay to the ones that exhaust less. And by doing that, we can also fight the poverty crisis. Now I want to show you some pictures. When we started the project Plan for the Planet, we thought we had to save the polar bear. But soon after we understood it's not about saving the polar bear, it's about our future. This is in Bangladesh. This kid is not looking at his face in the water, it's drinking. And this is why we made the sticker, Save the Human. The UN handed over the billion tree counter of the world to us children, and this is why we're counting all the trees globally. And right now, in the last 6 years, we have already planted 12.6 billion trees from our trillion trees we want to manage. And we have also set ourselves a second goal, which is to educate as many children as possible at academies all around the world. And we all have already educated 17,000, and our goal is 1 million. These academies are one-day events. At the beginning, we always have a speech by an already educated ambassador for climate justice. Then we practice giving presentations ourselves at these academies. Of course, we plant trees at all of them, and then we collect ideas what we could do to spread the message and so on. And we make plans what exactly we will do in our schools as our projects. And we present this plan, we present the plan of action, what we want to do in front of all the participants of the academy, and everyone who wants to get active gets a certificate as an ambassador for climate justice. These are just some of the things we learned there at the academy. This is how the world looks, how we learned it in school. But the world has many faces. This is by land area. The larger a country is by land area, the larger it is on this map. This is by cars. The more cars that drive in the country, the bigger the country is on this map. This is the world by motorcycles, by people that have less than $1 a day. This is by world population, and this is by CO2 emissions. We US Americans and we Europeans together are about 10% of the global population. But together, we have 60% of the global CO2 emissions. Now, I'm sure all of you know the greenhouse effect. If we wouldn't have an atmosphere around our Earth, all the sun rays that shine down would be reflected back away again as heat rays. But we have an atmosphere, and this is why some rays are trapped inside. And this is good, because without that, we would have an average temperature on Earth of -18 degrees. But because of all these greenhouse gases we exhaust, this atmosphere is getting thicker, and not as many sun rays can get out again, heat rays. This is how the Arctic ice looked in 1980, and this is how it looked in 2007. Now let's look at the northern part of our planet. There are two main differences between the Greenland ice and the Arctic ice. The first difference is that the Greenland ice is on land, while the Arctic ice is in water. The second difference is that the Arctic ice is about 2 to 3 meters thick, while the Greenland ice is 2 to 3 kilometers thick. And because the Arctic ice is already in water, if it melts, the sea level won't rise. But because the Greenland ice is on land, if that melts, the sea level will rise by 7 meters. Now, the Arctic ice is like a mirror for our planet, and a fridge at the same time. Because 80 to 90% of the sun rays that shine onto the ice are reflected back away again. But if this ice melts, then the water beneath will absorb 80 to 90% of the heat, and will make the whole situation even worse. why we children and youth go as lobbyists, as future ambassadors to all to the parliaments, for example, and tell them about the three-point plan. This is the Congress in Mexico or the European Parliament. Or many of us go to local governments, to mayors and so on, and show them the three-point plan. One government signed a contract that they will implement the three-point plan there in a city of 250,000 people. And we also sent letters to all heads of governments of the world, and we asked them how they were planning to save our future. And also wrote them our three-point plan through the embassies in many countries. And we're going to all the UN conferences and showing our three-point plan there. And of course, we're trying to convince the people all around the world that we have to do something. For example, through the campaign Stop Talking, Start Planting. One picture we did was with Prince Felipe from Spain. And one day after we took that picture, it was in all the newspapers. But not just in the newspapers, but on the cover pages. Well, that's on the side, but that counts as well. And some of us also did an e-card. You go on our website and click on e-card, and then what you do is you upload a photo, for example, the President of Mexico. If the photo doesn't fit, just upload another one, and if it still doesn't fit, you can use the arrow keys, and then you can send the picture to your friends. And each January, we have many children in many countries of the world actually going around in the cities and putting speech bubbles on the Christmas trees, which we'll cut down. These are some word plays in German. It wouldn't work if I translated them, but this one, for example, says, if I had arms, I would be planting trees. Or looking for partners for reproduction. Yeah. Or please save my family tree, is what this one says. And just about a year ago, you saw in the video that we wanted to do a project with the chocolate industry. But they didn't want to support us, so we said, let's make our own chocolate. And this is what turned out, the Change chocolate. It's a chocolate we launched about 8 months ago in Germany. And we're working on an app for the chocolate right now. So when you walk around in the city, there will be a sound in your pocket, which means that there is a store with the chocolate quite close to you. And in Germany, we've already sold 1 million of the chocolates. And this year, we're working and planning to sell it in many other countries as well. It's already in 3 countries. So in case you know someone who could sell the chocolate in your country, that would be great. And with Plan for the Planet, we also have a democratic structure, which means that everyone that is part of the project can participate in electing our global boards, the Children Board and the Youth Board, and every year we have elections. And this year we're working on opening offices in around 10 to 20 cities. So these are the offices we're opening in 2013. So maybe you could help us with that as well. We need a lot of help. And these are some ideas we had for what you could do in your hotels. For example, like you got them here, for every customer that comes into your hotel, together with the room key, they could get a certificate that you planted 1 or more trees for them. And maybe you could sell the Change chocolate in your hotels, or even put it on the pillows in the hotels. Or during the low season, you could invite children to have academies in your hotel. You could give the Plan for the Planet books to your customers. Or what another idea we had is that you can also have your own tree counter on your website. So all the trees you plant for your customers can be on there, and some customers that want to support the project can also help towards your tree counter. And I'm sure all of you have this towel thing and you could give your customers a real reason why to reuse the towels by saying maybe for every five towels they reuse, they'll get a tree or something like that. And we put all these ideas in a flyer on your room. So please help us spread the message to all your customers. Thank you for helping us save our future. One more thing I quickly want to say. There's the possibility that if you want, you can set yourself a goal, how many trees you want to plant. If you set a tree goal, it doesn't matter how you plant these trees. You can plant the trees yourself, you can donate the money, we can plant 1 tree for €1, or in any other way. We don't care how you plant these trees, you just have to plant them until 2020. So if you want, I'm gonna walk around with some tablets, so you can put in the tree count and we will be able to see it there. Or on your trees, on your tables, you also have these cards. You can scan the barcode and then go. You will be directly on that tool to plant to make it a donation or to just set yourself a goal. So is there anyone here who wants to do that? Great.
So you have to reserve your main course now. Felix is going